Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called on world leaders to end the Russian invasion at the G20 summit. Appearing in a video in a speech beamed to leaders gathered for the summit in Bali, Mr. Zelensky referred to the G19 instead of the G20 in a pointed snub to Moscow. In his speech, Mr. Zelensky said, "I am convinced now is the time when the Russian destructive war must and can be stopped." President Putin is not at the talks, instead sending his foreign minister Sergei Lavrov. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said there was a widespread consensus at the G20 that Russia should be condemned for the war in Ukraine.
With Russia's foreign minister sitting there, we highlighted both the illegality and barbaric nature of Russia's war and also the devastating impact it is having on people around the world through higher food and energy prices. We have a responsibility to work with our G20 allies to fix the global economy, to grip inflation, but also to safeguard and preserve the international order, and that's what we're going to do.
Meanwhile, Russia has angrily rejected international calls for it to pay for war damage that it has inflicted in Ukraine.
Draft resolution is...
It comes after the UN General Assembly passed a resolution, 94 in favour to just 14 against, saying Russia should face the consequences of its actions, including paying reparations. In response, the Kremlin said it would work to stop the West seizing its international reserves to pay for reparations, calling the move formalised robbery. But the UN ambassador to Ukraine said it was time to hold Russia accountable.
Accounts of atrocities committed by Russians in the occupied territories, murder, rape, torture, forced deportation, looting, they all speak for themselves. Millions of Ukrainians have been forced to leave their homes and seek shelter elsewhere. Ukraine will have the daunting task of rebuilding the country and recovering from this war. But that recovery will never be complete without a sense of justice for the victims of the Russian war. It is time to hold Russia accountable.
Israel has called the US Department of Justice's decision to investigate the killing of Palestinian-American reporter Shireen Abu Akleh as a mistake. The outgoing defense minister, Benny Gantz, said he had told US representatives that Israel would not cooperate. The Israel Defense Forces concluded that one of its soldiers probably killed her, but called her death unintentional and ruled out a criminal inquiry. The Al Jazeera correspondent was shot in the head during an Israeli military raid in the occupied West Bank in May. Crowds of residents in southern China's industrial metropolis Guangzhou have escaped a compulsory lockdown and clashed with police as anger at strict coronavirus rules boiled over. Video shows noisy scenes in Guangzhou's Haizhu district, with people charging down streets and demonstrating with white hazmat suit-clad workers. Among all the latest outbreaks in China, Guangzhou has the biggest caseload, with new daily infections of COVID-19 topping 5,000 for the first time and fueling speculation that localized lockdowns could widen. Emergency rescue crews have airlifted residents and pets in flood-ravaged Australia's southeast to safety by helicopter after rapidly rising rivers cut off entire towns. More than a dozen helicopters were deployed to rescue trapped people from rooftops in the worst-hit towns in New South Wales state. Australia's east is in the grip of its fourth major food crisis this year, the latest one into its third month because of a rare multi-year La Nina weather phenomenon. And the UN says the world's population has hit 8 billion just 11 years after passing the 7 billion milestone. After a big surge in the middle of the 20th century, population growth is already slowing down. It could take 15 years to reach 9 billion, and the UN doesn't expect to reach 10 billion until 2080. The UN admits its sums could be out by a year or two, but the 15th of November is its best estimate for the 8 billion line to be crossed. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.